All right, here we are with the last part of Unit 1, Topic 4, Reconstruction Life. We're going to look at some of the day-to-day things that are going on in the South, some of the different groups that existed. It is a rather short slide, but it does have some important information that we will need to know in order to understand the unit. All right, first thing we need to look at is, what do freedmen do? What do former slaves do with their new freedom? All right, the 13th Amendment bans slavery. The 14th Amendment gives them certain rights. So the next thing we're at is, where do they go with life? Well, a lot of former slaves, they're going to use this opportunity to, look for their own work. All right, all they've ever known is working on the farm. So this is an opportunity for them to go find work somewhere else. Could travel the country. They no longer need passes to do it until the black codes come about. And, I guess most importantly, from an emotional point of view, is now they get to legally marry and have children. They don't have to worry about their wives or children being taken away from them and sold right back into slavery. But really the idea is economic opportunity. How can they best, and economic is one of our key words of social studies, it means money, right? How can they best try and provide for themselves and not have to rely on somebody else? Well, one of the key things they have to do is they have to be able to read and write. All right? Let's look at what sharecropping means. It is one of your vocabulary words. Radical Republicans really tried to make sure, or at least help former slaves own land. If they owned land, all right, then they would be able to provide for themselves. But most former slaves don't have the money to buy land, and the plantation owners still own all of the land after the Civil War. So they have to turn to a system of sharecropping. Now, it simply means, if you break the words up, share and cropping, you're simply sharing crops. The landowner, the plantation owner, he has the land, and the former slaves provide the labor source. So the former slaves, the freedmen, buy seeds and rent tools from the landowner in exchange for a small percentage of the crop. So really, the former slaves are still heavily reliant on the landowner, which is kind of just one step up from slavery. All right, this map is just showing you the percent of sharecrop farms. All right, you can see the dark red is 35 to 80% sharecrop farms. So if you look out, you look throughout the South, that's predominantly what you see is anything from 26% to 80%. So sharecropping really becomes a way of life in the South. And once again, sharecropping means that former slaves are still heavily reliant on the landowners. Okay, here's your first key question. How did African Americans respond to the new freedom? So if you have to hit pause, go for it. What do they do? This is a new stage in their life. What are some options that are available to them? Second part, we're going to look at some of the groups that exist in the South. Obviously, there are more groups than that, but these are kind of the three biggies. All right, freedmen, that's simple. Those are former slaves. Carpetbaggers, that's one of your vocabulary words. This guy down here, he's a carpetbagger, okay? It's not a nice term. Right, it doesn't even sound like you're a carpetbagger or you're a scalawag. All right, so we got two words here that just don't sound nice. You don't want to be called those things. A carpetbagger is anyone from the North who goes to the South to try and capitalize on the conditions. Meaning, for instance, if you own, you know that they're going to be rebuilding schools and rebuilding homes. You're going to go down there if you own a lumber company and you're going to sell your lumber for an incredibly high price, knowing that people are going to buy it. All right, that you taking advantage of the situation down there. So a carpetbagger is a northerner. A scalawag kind of sounds like a pirate, make them walk the plank, right? A scalawag is a southerner, right, who supports Reconstruction, because typically the people in the South, they didn't think that anything needed to be rebuilt. They didn't believe in Reconstruction. So if you were a white southerner who supported Reconstruction, right, you were not the popular people in the South, meaning the people in the South did not like you very much. So we have three names. Two of them would be negative connotations. Freedmen obviously would be a positive. All right. The Democratic Party, that's the predominant political party in the South. Right. These would be some of the members: white plantation owners, former Confederate soldiers, and members of the KKK, which we'll get to soon. Right. And here is their number one goal. Oops. Sorry, went to the next slide. Here is their number one goal. All right, they tried to keep power in the South by limiting the voting rights of African Americans, and that's where the 14th Amendment comes in, and then it comes the 15th Amendment. If you remember, we had three amendments. These are your Reconstruction amendments: 13, 14, 15. The 13th Amendment banned slavery. The 14th Amendment define who a citizen was. I'm not going to type the whole word here. Define what a citizen was, and the 15th Amendment guaranteed the right to vote for any citizen. So the way we remember it is 13, 14, 15, 13 being an unlucky number, and then the three key words, ban citizen vote. So we just yell at the top of our lungs, ban citizen vote, and that helps us to remember them. It kind of rolls off the tongue a little bit. All right, and then I give you a little note here. The Democratic Party, they don't really want Reconstruction to go on, so they're going to try and minimize it any way that they can. Okay, here's your second key question. What was the difference between carpetbaggers and scalawags? You have to think more of a geographic, looking at a map, the difference between the two there. And the last part, probably the part of Reconstruction that's the most famous and also the most tragic or sad, all right? The KKK, believe it or not, would be considered a terrorist group. A terrorist group is anybody who uses violence to accomplish their goals, right? And they believed in, a form of violent racism, meaning that they felt that in the South, whites should should have more power than the African Americans, the former slaves. Here are their two goals: to bring the Democrats back into power in the South, which would mean that they don't like the radical Republicans, right? And also keep former slaves powerless. So they're going to do all they can to try and restore the Democrats while also keeping the Republicans out of the South. Okay, here's an important slide here. The targets. Who are they going after? This would mean targets of their violence, African Americans and white Republicans, right? So if you think about your vocabulary words, right, a scalawag would be an example of a white Republican in the South. All right, methods, tactics, this is the biggie. Okay, they used fear to try and keep former slaves from voting. Lynchings and violence, they kind of go hand in hand, but the idea was that if you went and voted, especially if you voted for Republicans, they would maybe burn your house down or attack a family member, attack your children, or blow the school up that your kids went to school with. So anything they could do to keep Republicans from voting, they would do, right? And then I put there, my scalawag's in the way. It says, if Republicans and freedmen were afraid to vote, Democrats would stay in power. Okay, and then here's your final key question. Number 3. What was the goal of the KKK and what methods did they use? Go back and watch it if you need to.